The air in the 50th floor Manhattan law office was so thick with tension, Eliza Washington could barely breathe. This was the end of a 10-year journey that had started with a chance meeting at a charity gala and ended in this sterile, silent room. Outside the glass walls, the cold, gray New York sky was reflected in the pristine mahogany table, which smelled of expensive leather and Clarissa's sharp, floral perfume, like funereal lilies. Eliza, a black woman in her late 40s, sat poised in a simple, elegant navy blue dress. Her face was calm, betraying nothing, but her hands were clasped so tightly in her lap her knuckles were white. She was grieving, yes, but more than that, she was braced for the inevitable confrontation. Across from her, Clarissa Vanderbilt lounged in her chair. In her early 30s, she was a sharp vision in a blood-red power suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe, tight bun. She radiated a smug confidence and an undisguised, bitter disdain for Eliza. At the head of the table, Mr. Harrison, a meticulous man in his 60s, organized his papers, representing the old money establishment Arthur had belonged to. Clarissa sighed loudly, examining her perfectly manicured nails. "You know, Eliza," she said, her voice dripping with a false sympathy that failed to mask her contempt, "I almost feel bad for you. All those years playing nurse, just to end up with nothing." Eliza didn't respond. She kept her gaze fixed on the skyline. Clarissa's red-painted lips curved into a smirk, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Don't worry. I'm sure I can spare a little something from the estate to help you get back to wherever it is you came from." The racial undertone was sharp and deliberate, an insult Eliza had weathered for a decade. Clarissa truly believed Eliza was a temporary diversion, a lower-class black woman her father had used, who was now about to be put back in her place. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat, pointedly ignoring the barb. "If we are ready," he asked the room. "This is the last will and testament of Arthur Vanderbilt. The estate is valued at approximately $150 million. At the number, Clarissa sat bolt upright, her boredom vanishing. Her eyes glittered with a raw, greedy victory. Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. "I must state for the record that before executing this will, Mr. Vanderbilt was thoroughly evaluated by 3 separate physicians. He was found to be of completely sound mind." He looked directly at Clarissa as he said it, then turned to the first page. "The tension in that room is unbearable, but Eliza's dignity is powerful. If you're still watching and you feel the weight of this story, please comment with the number 8 below to let me know you're here with us. This is the kind of powerful story we are committed to telling at Black Brilliance. If you haven't subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss a single part of Eliza's journey. Your support helps us continue to create content that inspires and empowers. Now, let's get back to Mr. Harrison and find out what that will really says. "Let us begin with the primary bequests," Mr. Harrison said, his voice echoing in the heavy silence. His emphasis on Arthur's sound mind hung in the air, a direct counter to the accusations Clarissa had undoubtedly been making for months. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each tick seeming to mock the tension. Clarissa, sipping impatiently from a matcha latte she'd had delivered, looked utterly bored. Eliza remained still, her gaze lowered to her hands, focusing on her grandmother's simple wedding band on her finger. Mr. Harrison read through a few minor bequests, a significant donation to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a vintage watch to an old business partner. Clarissa tapped her expensive, blood-red pen against the mahogany. Yes, get on with it," she muttered, just loud enough for Eliza to hear, clearly annoyed by these distractions. Mr. Harrison paused, took a slow sip of water, and turned the page. His gaze was steady. "To my daughter, Clarissa Lynn Vanderbilt." Clarissa's smile widened, transforming into a predatory grin. She crossed her legs, leaning back in her chair as if ready to accept her kingdom. "I leave the sum of $10. The words hit the air like a gunshot. The silence that followed was absolute, heavier, and more shocking than the tension before. The ticking clock sounded like a hammer. Clarissa's face froze. The smug, superior smile was instantly wiped clean. Her skin flushed a deep, angry red, then drained to a chalk white. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "What?" she finally choked out, the words strangled and sharp. "Read that again." That's a mistake. Eliza didn't move. She didn't smile. She just closed her eyes briefly, taking a single, shaky breath. $10, Mr. Harrison repeated calmly, and a sealed letter, which I will provide to you shortly. He ignored her sputtering shock and turned to the next page. And now, to my wife, Eliza Washington Vanderbilt. Clarissa was still frozen, staring at Mr. Harrison as if he'd spoken in a foreign language. This is a joke, she whispered, her voice shaking with a mixture of disbelief and rage. And now, to my wife, Eliza Washington Vanderbilt. Mr. Harrison continued, his voice steady. I leave the entirety of my remaining estate. All properties, all business holdings, all investments, and all liquid assets. Everything. The words settled over Eliza like a heavy blanket. She let out a quiet, shaky exhale, the reality of $150 million too vast to comprehend. No. Clarissa slammed both hands flat on the mahogany table, her chair scraping backward with a violent shriek. Her face was a mottled mask of fury. That's not possible. She manipulated him. That witch, she screamed. The old money poise was gone, replaced by raw, ugly hatred. She poisoned him against me. She's nothing but a lowlife gold digger who fooled him. The lowlife comment was spat with venom, aimed directly at Eliza's race and class. Eliza, who had remained silent through 10 years of insults, finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through Clarissa's tirade. I never asked your father for anything, Clarissa. Liar. Clarissa shrieked, her voice cracking. You wormed your way in. You've been planning this all along. My lawyers will tear this apart. You will not get away with this. Mr. Harrison stood calmly. Miss Vanderbilt, your father's letter explains his reasoning. He slid the small, sealed envelope across the table. Clarissa snatched it, her eyes glaring at Eliza one last time. You will regret this, she hissed, before storming out of the conference room, slamming the door so hard the glass walls rattled. The silence that returned was profound. Eliza looked out the window, past her own faint reflection, her mind drifting away from the $150 million, away from Clarissa's hatred, back to 10 years ago, at the hospital charity gala where it all began. 10 years earlier, Eliza, a pediatric nurse, felt slightly out of place in her modest but elegant dress. She stood near the auction tables, admiring the items. A man with a warm smile approached her. Those are beautiful earrings, Arthur Vanderbilt said, not looking at the diamonds up for bid, but at her simple pearls. They were my grandmother's, she replied, smiling back. What a shocking twist. Clarissa gets $10 and Eliza inherits everything. That explosion was unbelievable. If you're still watching and you are living for this incredible moment of justice, please comment with the number 8 below to let me know you're here. This is the kind of powerful story we tell every day on Black Brilliance. If you haven't subscribed, I truly recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the 10-year flashback that explains why Arthur did this. Your support helps us continue to create amazing content that informs and inspires. Now, let's go back 10 years and find out what really happened. The first year of marriage was a dream, built on shared laughter and late-night talks at their favorite 24-hour diner, where Arthur, despite his wealth, seemed to genuinely love the simple pleasures. But Clarissa Vanderbilt was a nightmare Eliza couldn't wake up from. Eliza kept her grandmother's pearls on her dresser, a symbol of the genuine love she believed she shared with Arthur. But Clarissa seemed determined to tarnish it. The Vanderbilt mansion was lavish but cold, a sterile museum of a home. Eliza found her only refuge in the bright, chaotic pediatric ward at the hospital, where she still worked 3 days a week. At home, family dinners were tense, awkward affairs. Clarissa would pointedly discuss old family traditions or sailing trips, always ending with, "But, of course, you wouldn't know about that, Eliza." "You're just so ordinary," Clarissa said to her one evening, feigning concern. "Daddy, I just don't see why you married her." She'd complained to Arthur, just loud enough for Eliza to hear. "She's not our kind." She would openly mock Eliza's love for Motown music, calling it that Motown noise and wrinkling her nose. Arthur, weak and desperate to avoid conflict, would simply blame Clarissa's jealousy. "She just needs time, Eliza," he'd say, before offering to buy her a new bracelet. He began working later, traveling more. His new business partner, Ms. Sterling, a tall, blonde, and impeccably dressed woman who looked at Eliza with dismissive coldness, was suddenly always by his side. Eliza felt the distance growing like a chasm. One evening, Eliza came home late from a grueling 12-hour shift, her feet aching. She found Arthur in his office, speaking in low, warm tones she hadn't heard him use with her in months. He hung up quickly when he saw her, his face flushed. As he brushed past her, she smelled a sharp, floral perfume on his suit jacket. It wasn't hers. It was the same expensive, lily scent Ms. Sterling had worn at their business dinner last week. The first concrete proof came days later. Arthur had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter. An email notification popped up from Ms. Sterling. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you." The betrayal hit Eliza like a physical blow, compounding the years of loneliness from Clarissa's racist attacks. She stood there in the silent, dark kitchen, the email glowing on the screen, utterly alone. But as she stood there, a sound broke the silence. Arthur, in the other room, letting out a strange, persistent, rattling cough he'd been trying to hide for weeks. The betrayal was a cold stone in her stomach, but the diagnosis, delivered 2 weeks later, was a sledgehammer: stage 3 pancreatic cancer. The fight Eliza had planned over the affair died instantly. Arthur, confronted with his own mortality, crumbled. The oncologist gave him perhaps 6 to 8 months. The cold, lavish mansion transformed into a sick room. The smell of antiseptic replaced the scent of lilies. Arthur, devastated and terrified, was now truly alone. Miss Sterling, upon learning he was terminally ill, vanished. Her calls stopped. She was suddenly no longer available for meetings. Clarissa's visits were brief and strained. She complained about the smell of sickness and hovered awkwardly, her eyes clearly calculating, asking pointed questions about estate planning and power of attorney, rather than her father's comfort. Eliza had every reason to leave. She could have walked away, filed for divorce, and let the man who betrayed her face his end with the daughter who clearly only valued his money. But one night, Eliza found him weak and feverish, having been sick, too weak to call for help. Miss Sterling was gone. Clarissa was out at a fashion event. Eliza, who had every right to righteous anger, felt something else rise, her 20 years of nursing instincts. She didn't see the traitor. She saw a patient. She quietly cleaned him up, changed his linens, and went to the kitchen. She made him the simple broth he could keep down and brought his medication, crushing a pill because he was too weak to swallow. Arthur, his skin paper-thin and burning with fever, watched her. His eyes filled with shame tears. Why are you still here?" he whispered, his voice rattling. "You should hate me. After everything." Eliza paused, adjusting his pillow. She looked at the man, a shell of the powerful figure she had married. "Hate takes energy I don't have, Arthur," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Right now, you are my patient." In that moment, Arthur saw it all. Eliza's unconditional kindness against the backdrop of his mistress's abandonment and his daughter's greedy impatience. He made a decision. The next morning, his hands shaking, he made a secret call to Mr. Harrison. "I need you to come to the house," he said weakly. I need to make a change. I need to make things right." The day of the funeral, Eliza wore navy blue, not black. She was mourning the man she had married 10 years ago, the one who loved diners and her grandmother's pearls, not the stranger who had died. Back in the present, Clarissa's final, venomous threats, "This isn't over," still echoed in the conference room, but they felt distant. Mr. Harrison handed Eliza the final papers and a personal letter from Arthur. Later that night, in the quiet of a hotel room she had rented, she read it. His words were full of regret, explaining he left her everything because she deserved it, and that he was sorry he didn't realize what he had until it was too late. 1 year later, Eliza was a different woman. She wore her hair naturally, and she smiled often. The Vanderbilt mansion had been sold. In its place, she had funded a bright, welcoming, street-level office for the Second Chances Foundation. It was dedicated to helping women, especially women of color, escape difficult domestic and financial situations. She was hands-on, greeting clients herself, offering them the dignity she had fought to maintain. She had also returned to her roots, volunteering at a community center in Brooklyn. It was there, while painting a mural, that she met James. He was the contractor repairing the gym, a kind down-to-earth man, also black, with a warm laugh, who loved the same Motown music she did. Their relationship was slow, built on shared community values and laughter over coffee from the corner bodega. He had no idea she was wealthy for the first 3 months. He just knew she was kind and had a good heart. Clarissa, she had heard from Mr. Harrison, had cashed the $10 check. Her legal challenges had failed spectacularly. She was broke and, for the first time in her life, completely irrelevant. That evening, Eliza and James sat on the balcony of her modest apartment, which overlooked a park, not the skyline. They shared a cup of tea, listening to old Motown music on a small speaker. She was genuinely, profoundly happy. She had proven Clarissa's racist, greedy assumptions wrong, not by fighting, but by living well and showing her true, unwavering character. The $150 million hadn't defined her. Her kindness had. Her phone buzzed. It was a text alert. The foundation just helped another family secure safe housing. Eliza smiled, leaned her head on James's shoulder, and looked out at the park, completely at peace. In the end, Eliza's journey wasn't about the $150 million. It was about the priceless value of her own character. When we dismiss others based on prejudice, greed, or the color of their skin, we often fail to see the quiet dignity shining right in front of us. Like a simple pearl, true, unconditional kindness has a way of revealing its worth, often when it's least expected. If this story of resilience and justice touched your heart, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. And to ensure you never miss powerful stories that celebrate true character, please subscribe to Black Brilliance and join our community.